It is now my honor and deep pleasure to welcome two leaders to whom we owe so much. This past summer, when Donald Trump savagely attacked the city of Baltimore, we knew better. We knew that our greatest champion was born in Baltimore, and that her father and brother, may he rest in peace, had served as mayor of Baltimore. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is an inspiring and tireless force for good in our country, working on behalf of every American, and through decades of public service, she has improved the lives of millions. Each time she stands up to President Trump and his cronies in the Oval, shakes a finger, shuts him down, chastises him, or even delivers a clapback. We proudly stand with her and count ourselves very lucky that she's our champion. We at J Street will always be deeply grateful to Speaker Pelosi for her tireless support of the two-state solution and for her incredible leadership shepherding the JCPOA nuclear agreement with Iran through Congress despite fierce opposition. Back then, we called her Madam Leader, and we had the honor to work with her closely during that important time. Today, with President Trump's withdrawal from the JCPOA, it's more clear than ever just how critical that agreement was and just how dire the consequences are for the stability of the region and for the U.S. and for Israel's security. Before we hear from the Speaker, we are honored to hear from the Senate Democratic leader, Senator Chuck Schumer, hailing from my beloved state of New York. Standing with the Speaker, Leader Schumer has led the vigorous opposition to the extremism and corruption of this administration and its destructive and horrific foreign and domestic agenda. Senator Schumer has long been among Congress's most stalwart supporters of Israel, outspoken in his concern for Israel's security, prosperity, and future. Senator Schumer has stood firm against attempts by some senators to use Israel as a partisan wedge, and he has demonstrated his caucus's firm support for the two-state solution, even as the Trump administration has repeatedly tried to undermine the prospects of peace. We are thrilled to welcome him for the first time tonight to a J Street National gathering. We assume it will not be the last. Ladies and gentlemen, and J Street U, let me hear you. Please join me in welcoming my Senator, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank your board chair, Alex Stanton, for the nice introduction. I want to thank your president, Jeremy Ben-Ami, and recognize my friends, Senator Van Hollen and Representative Jayapal. I also want to acknowledge my dear friend for 30 years, our great speaker, Nancy Pelosi, who is joining me tonight in recognizing two people I have known for also close to 30 years and have been great and wonderful people, Stephen and Pilar Robert. So they are great people. But before I say my few words about Stephen and Pilar, I want to share with you a few personal words about my support for Israel and the threats that Jewish communities across the globe are facing. Now, first, a safe, secure, and democratic Israel is and has always been in America's national interest. But I fear that what has always been a predominantly bipartisan issue surrounding the security of Israel is now being exploited for partisan gain. Some, we know who they are trying to make Israel a partisan issue. Those who try to use Israel as a means of scoring partisan political points do a huge disservice to both Israel and to the United States. Whenever I led a piece of pro-Israel legislation, even when Democrats had a majority in the House and Senate, What I always did was include a Republican co-sponsor, because support for Israel must remain bipartisan, as it has been for decades. Now, another fear I have, a fear that as history moves on, the threats faced by Israel and the Jewish people are not appreciated as fully as they have been in the past, especially for those who haven't lived through it. Israel is strong. The Jewish people are successful. So the dangers don't appear as clear as they once did. Now, this is very understandable. Many didn't live through the crucible of the creation of Israel, nor the several existential threats, wars, and invasions that followed. One can learn this from a history book, but living through it is a different thing. Now, my grandson, Noah, 11 months old, just took 3 steps today, first time. He was born at a time when Israel is stronger than ever. So I think about what I'll tell him when he's older, about our family, about the very existence of Israel, and how it meant a great deal to me long before my name ever appeared on the ballot, long before I ever thought of being an elected official. I'll tell Noah the story of our family. My great-grandfather was a well-known rabbi in Eastern Europe on the Ukraine-Slovakian border. He believed devoutly in the Bible. The first commandment of God to man in the Bible in Hebrew is peru urvu, be fruitful and multiply. So he had 18 children. Now, they were poor, as we know. The Jews in Eastern Europe were poor. They weren't allowed to be farmers. They weren't allowed to be tradesmen. And so all they could do was study. Although when I told this story to my colleague Byron Dorgan, a former senator, a droll Norwegian, he said, he had 18 kids? I said, yeah. He said he wasn't just studying. But the 3 youngest, because they couldn't afford to keep up with these 18 kids financially, the 3 youngest, including my grandfather, were sent to America. But the 15 others stayed in Europe. When the Nazis invaded Ukraine, they told my great-grandmother, who was then the matriarch of the family, the rabbi had passed away, to gather her entire family, a sort of well-known family in this little shtetl, to the porch of their house. 31 people gathered there from ages 85 to 3 months. The Nazis said to my grandmother, bring your whole family with us, you're coming with us. She said, we're not moving. They machine-gunned dead, every one of them. That is why I believe in an Israel. I would have many more cousins and nieces and nephews. I will tell Noah that. I will also tell Noah that as a young man in James Madison High School in Brooklyn, I remember walking through the halls in 1967 with a transistor radio attached to my ear. I'll have to tell Noah what a transistor radio is, too. But we were worried during the Six-Day War that Israel would not even survive. We have to tell this story, particularly to those younger Americans who haven't lived through this. We have to show them how important the state of Israel is. We also have to remind them, and unfortunately we don't need to remind them as much these days with everything happening, of the danger of the recent rise of anti-Semitism, white supremacy, and bigotry in America. We can never be complacent. We must forcefully condemn anti-Semitism and white supremacy whenever it rears its ugly head. Yesterday marked 1 year today since a white supremacist perpetrated the largest massacre of Jews on American soil in Pittsburgh. A white supremacist who targeted the Tree of Life because of their work with refugees. And make no mistake about it, my friends, bigotry to one people becomes bigotry to all people. We cannot forget that ever. And as I look out my window from Brooklyn, I see that beautiful lady in the harbor with her torch. She's a beacon of hope for millions. J Street understands this. That's why you are advocating for members to support the No Ban Act when you come to Capitol Hill tomorrow. I am a proud co-sponsor and will do everything I can to get this act passed. The day the symbol of America becomes a big, ugly wall rather than the Statue of Liberty is the day the sun sets on America. Plain and simple. And one final point. We must not lose sight of our hopes. The hopes for a safe and secure Israel. And for me, the only solution I see is two states living side by side in peace. I want to be clear. I strongly believe in a two-state solution. I always have, and that is the way for peace in the Middle East. So, my friends, we have to be wary of the threats. We have to do the hard work, so important, of passing down our history, l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. That is our mission, and I will stand by you with it. Now, finally, before I think I'm supposed to introduce my good friend Speaker Pelosi if she's here, but I want to honor these Gala honorees, Stephen Robert and his wife, Pilar Crespi Robert. Stephen and Pilar are, simply put, some of the most charitable people in our country. They embody the very concept of tzedakah. Their foundation, Source of Hope, helps impoverished communities across the world access water and food and health care and education. From Haiti to Israel to Manhattan's Lower East Side, they work. Sources of Hope does its good work. Stephen's other venture, Millennium Promise, seeks to eradicate extreme poverty within our lifetime. A noble and hard goal, but if anyone can accomplish it, it's the Roberts. Maimonides famously articulated 8 levels of tzedakah. Stephen and Pilar are working hard to fulfill not 1 or 2 of those levels, but all 8. Now, of course, they're more than just philanthropists. They're generous with their ideas as writers, journalists, and advocates. Stephen, too, has been a lifelong champion for and a leader of great institutions of higher learning. So, for their work, for their generosity, for their thoughtfulness, I cannot imagine more fitting honorees for tonight's gala. Am I supposed to do the introduction? Well, if she doesn't walk out, she's on her way. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend, Speaker Pelosi. We spend lots of time every day talking on the phone with each other, and I want to tell you something. Sometimes she even laughs at my jokes. And she will have the honor of introducing her great friends, Stephen and Pilar Crespi Robert. Thank you, and have a great rest of your meeting here this week. Thank you.